So this is Steve, aka Paul Marks, coming at you from the end of our dock in Shilshoe Bay Marina, Ballard, Washington, Puget Sound. Beautiful day, nice breeze, lots of boats out. And this is a conversation that's a really, really powerful and important one that is oft overlooked by people who are involved in solo entrepreneurship or home-based businesses. Many of the terminologies that we use for doing business for ourselves are quite self-limiting because we talk about them in terms of small businesses and solopreneurships, which indicate that we're not delegating, we're not building them large, we're not thinking big, we're thinking very small. And this is partly because we're taught to think small since birth. We're taught to think just member of the pack, not leader of the pack. We're taught not to think outside the box, outside the sphere of influence of family, clergy, the business that we work for, the educational system we're products of. And that eats its way into our language. So we're always talking small, we're always talking solo, we're always talking about, I'm on an island, I'm all by myself, I don't have anyone to help me, I'm not interested in delegating and building a team and building a large organization and building a large chain of restaurants. That's for somebody else to do. That's for me to go work for as a senior vice president, not for me to build myself. I'm not good enough, etc., blah, blah, ad nauseum. And we forget that we say these things about ourselves. So this is a discussion about using a framework rather than marketing just your business, which is usually yourself. And that meme, not the framework, but yourself, you're the solo person, you're the person who's there for the taking if people want you, reduces the conversation to it has to be all about you, not about what you're representing, which usually is not really a true business. It's more of a commission sales rep position if you're working for a network marketing company, if you're an affiliate for some other internet-based marketer. If you're selling real estate, you're still working for someone else as their commission sales rep, and you don't control the product, and you don't control the quality, and you don't control very much of anything except whether or not they'll buy you, which is what you have to sell if you're going to sell almost anything in that fashion. This is about a departure from that, a mutiny, if you will. I like to call it a mutiny because it sounds kind of dangerous and bold and daring and romantic to be a mutineer against the system, which is almost entirely reducing you down to cheese whiz for money and chump change, and you're a sinner, and you're solo, and you're a soloist, and you're an idiot, and you are never going to amount to very much, which is what most people in our lives, whether they admit it or not, are saying to us with their language. So a framework changes that. A framework is where you promote the framework and not yourself. It's where you are part of, we like to call it a tribe because we think it's stupid to call it a team. That sounds like competition. Teams compete, teams win and lose, teams hurt each other, teams puff their chest when they beat the other team. They beat the other team. You see how that works? I don't want to beat anybody. I want to be part of a tribe. And a tribe has connotations of Native American this and denigrating a class of people who are part of indigenous people or First Nations, we call them. That's not good enough for me. I like tribe. I don't want team. I don't want boardroom. I don't want patrol. I don't want anything but a tribe. Tribe makes sense to me. Tribe is what we've been for millions of years around the, whether your clergy admits it or not, millions of years around the fire. And even if we couldn't talk, we could dance, and we could communicate with hand signals, and we could take a piece of wood and whack it on a tree, and guess what? Somebody far enough away to not be able to see anything, even if we didn't have fire, heard that whack and was able to respond with their own whack, or I really don't want to go past that hill because that's where that whacking noise is coming from, and I'm going to stay away from them. And that was one of our original forms of communication, was percussion, which now has morphed into, I don't know, 20-ton nuclear warheads that make a little bit more percussion than just a piece of wood whacking on a big tree trunk. So a framework gives you the ability to separate your story from yourself. And we hear a lot about storytelling. You have a story in you, you have to tell the story, people are going to buy your story, then they're going to buy whatever you're selling. Well, not so much. What if your story isn't very big? What if you don't like telling stories? What if you suck at storytelling? What if you don't want to be on a video? What if you don't want to make an audio? What if you can't write to save your own mother from the firing squad? Well, you're probably not going to be a very good videographer or a very good audiologist, as somebody who makes audios for a living, or you're not going to be a very good professional blogger if you haven't read very much and you haven't written very much, and you certainly don't know how to write copy, which often isn't original. It's just swipe files and trying not to plagiarize the other copywriter who's also a copier of other copywriters. There's just not an awful lot of original persuasive writing going on these days. And so you fall into the trap, and it's a big one, of being the solopreneur and having to rely on your own wits and your own attraction, your own authority position in the marketplace, whatever niche or niche you choose to promote, and then you're just reduced down to a commission sales rep. And however good you are at making sales and closing them and following up is how big your commission check is. And rarely are you going to stumble across somebody who's good enough at it so that you build a big marketing organization that stands the test of time, and you get what we refer to as passive income or residual income. Income that comes in whether you work or not that day or that week or that year. That's what everybody's going for. But trust me, residuals is not that easy, even if you're doing it in the conventional world where it's residential rentals or commercial shopping mall strip that you own free and clear and a bunch of cash comes in, or a 50-unit apartment complex, or a series of vacation homes you rent out, or a bunch of boats you charter to rich people in the summers. All of that can be residual. Municipal bonds, a la Susie Ormond, those can be residual too, and they're easier because you just give it over to somebody and they do it for you and the money comes in. That's kind of what the wealthy people do. But that's much, much more difficult to achieve on a monthly or even weekly cash flow basis on the internet or in the home-based business market. It sounds great. It looks good on paper or on the whiteboard with the circles going everywhere, and you're rich in 5 weeks or 5 months. But it takes 5 to 10 years, and you're going to fail 5 or 6 times before you get to the 7th op or MLM or ClickBank product or subscription-based website or big JV marketer you align with that starts to make you the real money, and then you don't have to work so hard. So a framework changes all that. It's a framework that encapsulates multiple models based on don't have all your eggs in one basket. One of them might go poof next month. Somebody might take their whole organization with them and you're left holding the bag. You don't want that. You want multiple models, and people will tell you got to focus. I understand focus, but you want to be thinking in terms of building multiple streams of cash flow that can end up bringing you multiple streams of passive income from real estate and from hotels and from owning a string of Wendy's or whatever, or municipal bonds, blue chip stocks that pay like clockwork for 50 years in a row, that dividend, which isn't very big, but it's something. And if you have a lot of shares, you have a lot of money every quarter. So there are ways to make money without doing the work that day or that week or that month or even that year, but not very many of them, and especially not in a home-based business. It's mostly you do the work, you get the money, or a small team of people that you dictate what they do helps you make the money. And if you go poof, that team goes elsewhere and your family gets nothing, your estate gets nothing, and you're back to square one when you get better, or you come back from your sojourn or whatever you did to get, maybe you're in the hospital, whatever, and maybe you had some disability insurance, maybe you didn't, and then you have to kind of start from scratch because 6 months went by and you have to start all over and everybody left. So you want to avoid that, and a framework can have you do that because it stays put, and because it's no longer about you, it's about the framework and the people that are in it, and their brand, and their work, and their effort, and their assets. And it's about the framework's assets, whether they're digital or offline. Most frameworks don't have an offline component. This one does. This one is yachts, big ones, islands, big ones, fee simple ones, with celebrities down the street that come to dinner and write big checks, with big, huge equestrian ranches high in the high country, away from the mess and the maelstrom of human affairs. And that's where people want to come, and that's where you want to mastermind and build your skills, not just in marketing, but in, bouldering and riding a horse and learning how to track wild animals and looking at the stars. You don't get very many stars in the city. You get them in the high country. You get them out on an island in the South Pacific. You get to see the Southern Cross in the South Pacific, don't you? So the framework, and not selling you anymore. Selling you is stupid. That doesn't mean you can't make a lot of money selling you. Of course you can if you're Tony Robbins. Of course you can if you're Dan Kennedy. Of course you can if you're Dan Pena. But if you're just you, they want you to be you Inc. And you just got out of high school or you just got out of college. That's not a brand. That's a disaster waiting to happen. And no disrespect intended, but it takes a long time to build a brand around yourself and be seen as the authority in anything. Never mind in business. Business is a whole bunch harder to build an authority than being an authority at two-man sand volleyball, or how to collect stamps, or the best person in the chess club in your town. That's not going to make you any money. Being the authority in something like, making money in the stock market or in Forex, that's hard to become an authority. It's hard, and it takes a long time. You're not going to get there in a weekend or 2 months. A framework can get you off the ground quickly. A month or two, you're making a lot more money than most people are making in a year, especially if you have a little scratch to put in. If you don't, you have to haul yourself up by your bootstraps and build the scratch, which you can do quickly if you have the leverage. You have to have levers in order to build that gumball of scratch or working capital in order to put some decent money, some significant substantive funds into a framework, and then the framework does all the heavy lifting for you. It's not done for you, it's just done with much, much higher leverage than you're going to do for yourself, because you don't know how to build levers. You don't even know where the levers are, or how to buy them, or how to acquire them by downloading off a free open source site. You don't know. You don't know where they're lurking. And somebody has to show you how, and that's why you pay for a framework, which essentially is paying for a mentor that you had until about, 12th grade, and then you just chucked them and stopped paying for them. And now you're broke. I wonder why. You didn't have a mentor, and you need a mentor to point out the model. And when you have a model and a mentor, then you have contact, and a whole bunch of stuff happens, including a whole bunch of money. So think framework. That's what we have. A really, really powerful one of the most powerful ever designed, and not you Inc., and not abundance or attraction marketing or secrets or all this other nonsense that they want to put on you and make you believe, so you buy their $2,000 thing, whatever the thing is that month. There's a lot of those, aren't there? And some of them are expensive and some of them are cheap, and all of them are mostly worthless unless they actually produce dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, or a heavy dose, D-O-S-E, of sex in your head, and then people buy it. And then it's transferable to the 18-year-old or the 9-year-old that has suitable permission from her parents. That's what a framework can do. It can take a 90-year-old to $100,000 a month, and it can take a 9-year-old. And that's because the framework is what you're selling, not you Inc. Not you the solopreneur. Not you the authority on whatever. The tribe is the authority. The tribe is the brand. And you're not going to use the tribe as your domain either. Tribe.com/yourname. That doesn't cut it. That dog doesn't hunt. That dog sailed a long time ago, and that's why it's really hard to be an affiliate. And that's why it's really hard to be in network marketing. They all want to give you networkmarketingcompany.com/whatever your name is. Now you're just a commission sales rep, same as every other 700,000 or 7 million of them out there. Not going to work. Got to be your own domain, your own brand, your own mug on the marquee, your own coat of arms on the website. And then you've got the framework behind you, and they find out it's that framework that they heard about 2 years ago and didn't do anything with. You've been reinvited, and now you're in. They make money, you make money, now you're rolling. And you, the new person, get your own brand, your own domain, your own. You just trade some services that you're good at that the other person isn't, or you trade it in for fungible, widgets, and you get your logo designed, and you get a website that makes sense from what the characters are in the web domain, and you choose carefully among .com, .net, .org, .co, .info, .us, .whatever, .ad nauseum. You choose the right top level. You choose where to host that, including on our own hosting. Cloud servers won't cost you anything more than, as long as you get to a certain level, you got all the hosting you want. You want to host 100 domains, no problem. We'll spread it out among multiple classes, and you're off and running. Now you're actually doing it properly instead of the way most people do. So think framework. Don't think you Inc. Don't think you as a solo person on an island with a big, huge red flag you're waving on the top of your island going, what am I doing here? All alone. I need a framework. Well, this is it.